Christian Horner didn't hold back when addressing the controversy surrounding the stewarding decisions at the Canadian Grand Prix, particularly the one that impacted Yuki Tsunoda during the final practice session. The incident? Tsunoda overtook Oscar Piastri's damaged McLaren during red flag conditions, a move that ultimately earned him a harsh 10-place grid penalty for Sunday's race. And that penalty may have cost him any real chance of a points finish. Horner voiced his frustration loud and clear, joining the chorus of criticism aimed at the FIA's increasingly erratic rule enforcement. With confusion mounting in the paddock, the question looms: will the governing body ever establish consistent standards, especially when it comes to penalties for drivers operating compromised cars? Let's break it down. Tsunoda's move, while technically under red flag conditions, came as he approached Piastri's McLaren, which was limping around the track with a punctured tire. The car was slow, unpredictable, and a potential hazard. Tsunoda made the judgment call to move past him rather than risk damage to his own vehicle. Now here's where the frustration builds. Last season, Sergio Perez drove a Red Bull with a damaged rear wing back to the pits during a race weekend. His punishment? A 3-place grid drop for the following event in Barcelona. But this year, Tsunoda's immediate penalty, despite acting to avoid a collision or debris, was over 3 times as severe. Horner was clearly unimpressed. Speaking to the media, he remarked, "Yuki was penalized on Saturday for an overtake, and then we saw other cars overtaking under questionable conditions while marshals were still on the track after the race." But nothing came of it. Where's the consistency? The Red Bull boss also complimented Tsunoda's actual race drive, stating that once the tire temperatures came up, he performed admirably, especially considering how tough overtaking is on that circuit. But the sting of the penalty still lingered, and the inconsistency didn't go unnoticed. Horner's comments referenced a curious moment after the race had finished on Sunday. Several cars overtook under safety car conditions, and though the stewards launched an investigation, no further action was taken. Even Tsunoda himself admitted he was hopeful that penalties for those incidents might bump him up the finishing order, possibly as high as P5. But, predictably, nothing happened. It's just another example in a long list of head-scratching calls from the FIA. The argument from Tsunoda's camp is straightforward. Piastri's wounded car was barely crawling, and not even on the racing line. Continuing to follow it could have caused Yuki serious trouble, whether through flying debris, damage to his own car, or even being forced to stop entirely. What if Piastri's McLaren had ground to a halt right in front of him? Tsunoda would have been trapped, possibly rear-ended, or worse. From that perspective, Tsunoda didn't act recklessly. He acted responsibly. He made a judgment call to prioritize safety, both his and others. Penalizing him, while letting the car creating the hazard go unpunished, sends a confusing message about what drivers are expected to do in such moments. Yuki himself was visibly disappointed and explained his actions with clarity. "I saw Oscar's tire wobbling badly. It looked like it could come off. I reacted by moving far right to stay safe. I checked the cars in front and behind, made sure I had space, then passed at around 170 kilometers an hour, which is half our usual speed. And still, I got a penalty. I honestly don't understand what they wanted me to do." In his view, and to many watching, it was a decision born of caution, not aggression. So here we are again, another weekend where the rules are interpreted not just differently from driver to driver, but seemingly case to case. And as Horner pointed out, when overtakes under more dangerous conditions go completely unpunished, while sensible split-second decisions get slammed, it's no wonder the paddock is losing faith in consistent governance. Until the FIA addresses these inconsistencies and clarifies expectations, drivers will continue operating in a gray zone, punished for erring on the side of caution, while others escape scrutiny altogether. As expected, Yuki Tsunoda's race weekend took a serious blow following his controversial penalty, which dropped him out in Q2 and left him starting near the very back of the grid. With Liam Lawson and Pierre Gasly receiving their own penalties for car modifications under Parc Fermé rules, Tsunoda was effectively relegated to last place on the grid, a position that hardly reflected his potential pace. According to Red Bull team boss Christian Horner, this penalty robbed Tsunoda of what could have been a standout performance. Horner noted that had Daniel Ricciardo started from his original qualifying position, he would have likely brought home points, implying that Yuki could have done the same, if not better. Horner also addressed Yuki's driving style and setup approach. He suggested that rather than trying to emulate Max Verstappen's preferences, Tsunoda should stay true to what suits him best and focus on developing his own optimal setup. While there's been some improvement, Horner hinted that it might not be enough to secure Tsunoda's long-term place in the Red Bull system. And that's where things get complicated. Looking ahead to 2026, the future of Red Bull's driver lineup is full of uncertainty. Even the rest of 2025 feels up in the air for Tsunoda. Rising stars like Isaac Hadjar are already being discussed as possible candidates for promotion, especially given the rookie's phenomenal form. Alongside Kimi Antonelli, Hadjar has been one of the most exciting young drivers of the season, and Red Bull is already considering him as a potential teammate to Verstappen if Tsunoda fails to raise his game. A major shakeup may be coming to the Red Bull camp, starting from the senior team and rippling through to the Racing Bulls outfit. In recent weeks, the pressure on Tsunoda has intensified. Dr. Helmut Marko revealed that Yuki is now running identical hardware to Verstappen following his crash in Imola. That means any performance discrepancies can no longer be blamed on equipment. Marko was candid. Yuki has the same parts as Max now. It's up to him to learn, adapt, and finally deliver consistent points. If he doesn't, I think we all know what comes next. Red Bull isn't lacking in options. They've got a deep talent pool filled with hungry, ambitious drivers who would seize any chance to drive alongside Verstappen. Ironically, the same car that once raised eyebrows for limiting Sergio Perez's performance, the RB21, is now being scrutinized for whether it can unlock Tsunoda's full potential. Meanwhile, Hadjar's incredible start to the year has placed him just behind Verstappen in the internal Red Bull rankings, making him the most impressive affiliate in the championship after the reigning world champion. When asked about the possibility of joining Red Bull's main squad, Hadjar didn't hesitate. "I don't feel completely ready yet, but if I'm offered that seat, I'll take it. I'm a fighter. What motivates me is going up against the best. Having Max as a teammate would be a huge learning opportunity. I get along with him, he's relaxed, and as long as things stay professional on track, it'll be fine." However, not everyone shares Red Bull's enthusiasm about fast-tracking Hadjar. Peter Bayer, a key figure at Racing Bulls, has reportedly pleaded with Red Bull management to hold off and allow Hadjar to complete his development with them, at least through 2026. The current strategy in Faenza appears to prioritize keeping the young Frenchman in their car before potentially moving on to another rising star, Arvid Lindblad. Yet Red Bull's ambitions are more aggressive. There are whispers that both Hadjar and Lindblad could be repositioned sooner than expected, with Hadjar heading straight to the senior team and Lindblad stepping into a Racing Bulls seat. This would completely derail Faenza's long-term plan and throw Tsunoda's future into jeopardy. Unlike Liam Lawson, Tsunoda may not have a backup option within the Red Bull ecosystem. If Red Bull decides that Hadjar is the stronger choice for both the rest of 2025 and the start of the new regulations in 2026, then Tsunoda could find himself without a drive. Right now, the only realistic destination on the horizon might be Cadillac, which is rumored to be targeting experienced drivers like Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. But if Tsunoda becomes available, he could very well enter their consideration, forcing a rethink of their current driver strategy. Regardless of what happens next, one central takeaway remains clear. The inconsistency in FIA decision-making continues to cloud drivers' careers. Yes, Tsunoda has areas he needs to improve, but he's not the only one under scrutiny. The governing body also needs to reflect, clarify, and improve. Until it does, talented drivers will continue to pay the price for decisions that lack uniformity, and that could have lasting consequences across the entire Formula One landscape. So, what's your take on Tsunoda's penalty? And more importantly, should Piastri have been penalized too, considering that unstable tire and the risk it posed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And when you're done, don't forget to click the video on your screen right now for more F1 breakdowns and behind-the-scenes analysis.